Welcome back to Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, Season 2. That's right. This is our second year with the podcast that looks at movies that were overhyped and did not make it at the box office or critically. In some cases, they succeeded with both, but did not please at all the hardcore fans or just considered bad after the movie was out for a few years of release. I am your host with the most, Robert Moda. With me, we have from Adrenaline Cinemas and Panels to Pixel podcast, Mark Kirkman.
Hello.
And new to the podcast, filmmaker, musician, producer, director, and writer, Adam Gonzalez from Gilded Harbor.
What's up?
Also new to the podcast are my longtime friends and movie fans, Frank Rodriguez.
Hello.
And artist extraordinaire, Patrick Reilly.
How's it going?
Very good, man. I'm glad to have you guys all here. So with this podcast in which we review big tentpole movies that were overhyped and the marketing was over the top in some cases, we discuss what the industry is doing. Marketing firms are using all sorts of platforms to get the word out for movies, from TV to radio to social media platforms like TikTok. So where do they fail and where do they succeed? So here's what I would say. There's some movies, I mean, the way they're doing kind of like this crazy type of, marketing nowadays, trying to get people to, either stream or actually just go to the movies now, of course, especially after the pandemic, has been crazy. Mm-hmm. One great example of a movie that actually used TikTok for their campaign was, what's it called? Megan?
Megan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Megan. Yeah.
Megan. I mean,
dance.
The dance. That was extremely successful. In some cases, sometimes they totally fail. So my question to you guys, I mean, where do you feel like some of them have failed, some of them have succeeded? What trends do you guys see out there?
I'll just say, as far as, especially with Megan's case, from what I understand, I didn't have a chance to see it yet, but I understand the movie is actually pretty good. So the dance got people in the door. People saw it and they were like, I have to check this movie out. And I think they did a pretty effective job with that, and it helps when the movie doesn't suck. So,
right. The great thing about it was done through TikTok, which
right.
they barely made any, spend any money on that compared to other movies that they'll spend pretty much half the budget, or if not almost the same type of budget.
At least $500,000 at times, in social media alone.
Right. Wow. Adam, you being in this industry, what do you think?
I mean, you got to go where the audience is, right? Like, no one's watching live TV. Nobody's, it's just, I mean, right now the top 4 platforms is Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, with TikTok probably being the more viral out of all of them. So it makes sense that they're just going to funnel as much marketing dollars in that platform because, I mean, let's just face it, usually what they would consider a certain older generation, they're probably on it, but they're not going to be on it as much as the teenagers and the people in their 20s and 30s. So the chances of them getting the exposure that they want for this movie is just going to be way higher, and on top of that, it's just way more cost effective. They're not paying these other channels and these other companies to advertise. It's like the Super Bowl, right? They pay that money because the audience is there, but once that's gone, they're just going to go straight to social media. That's where the audience is, and then with all the analytics that they have, they know what days, what times. It's all a numbers game, but that's where they're going to get the biggest return on their investment when it comes to digital ads.
Right. But do you think that there is still room for the big tent, type of advertisement, which is of course on televisions, on billboards? I mean, if you go to Times Square, I mean, you'll see one movie that's plastered in every billboard, electronic billboard up there, which I'm sure is a costly endeavor. I mean, do you see things like that going away, or do you think it'll still continue?
Yeah, I think it's still going to continue because there's a certain like validation when you have when when you see like the Marvel movie, well, not DC, but when you see the Marvel movies and like those bigger IPs, when you see it on like the biggest jumbotron thing out there, it, I mean, obviously it's serving a purpose of like exposure, but there's also a validation behind it. So like people look at it as like, oh, this is an official movie
Mm.
that I can see at an official theater,
Mhm.
because it's I mean, at the end of the day, it's just about the tactics they're going to use to get people in their seats, and I mean, it's definitely shifted because, thankfully the algorithm knows me, and I see all the trailers and I get all that stuff on my news feed, and it's because it figured me out and my habits. So now I'm going to get fed all the stuff that is going to make me want to go, oh yeah, I'm going to go see this, and obviously it's going to be on repetition. So the more they play it, the more it's ingrained in my brain, and then eventually when it releases, I'm going to be wired to want to go see this movie. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, but TikTok is, I think that was like the surprise. I remember when TikTok was first around and I paid no attention to it, and then it was like overnight it just like blew up, and I still kick myself in the butt for like not jumping on that train. I'm still trying to figure out. I'm not good when it comes to that marketing side of for myself, but
Mhm.
it's just crazy. I've seen people grow from like no followers to hundreds of thousands of followers, and it's just on one platform. So these movie studios, they know what they're doing. They have the
Right.
numbers and the analytics to back it up.
Yeah, it
Not
just
only
seems
that,
like it just seems like it's one of those things where when you watch these people on TikTok, first of all, I mean, I come from the old, I'm an old man where I'm like, listen, if I work hard, I should get paid. I see these people that they don't work hard, they're just on TikTok and they're getting paid millions of dollars. I'm like, where the fuck did things go wrong in this world? But
No, where did you go wrong is what
Exactly.
you have to question
yeah,
yourself.
exactly.
And it's the oddest things that make these people money. They'll just get on TikTok and do something like just mundane and normal, and all of a sudden they're a sensation. And you're like, really?
Well,
When
look
it's-
at the
just makes you
Wednesday promotion that was out with her dancing.
yeah,
Yeah.
That became such a thing, and it got a lot of TikTok users money that way.
Yeah.
Plus, it was also marketing for that particular movie or
Mhm.
that show on Netflix.
Yeah.
Right.
And it achieved its #1 status and made it more money than they thought. So Netflix will probably, at this point, make it a venture to go the TikTok route with specific artists that they know. A lot of people used to do that at certain points for AMC, for live reactions for specific shows at that time that were very popular. Not
Right.
going to go into them, but also with even HBO Max shows as well. So people would have instant reactions, and that was the norm at that time. Then TikTok took over. TikTok now has bled into Facebook and Instagram. Now, if you look at The Last of Us, they're kind of promoting that more and more now with the gamers' point of view when they play the game The Last of Us as comparison to the show scenes, and then having them side by side. So you have the gameplay story of them, let's say when Ellie finds the porno mag in the truck and she talks to Joel. It's word for word verbatim, but they have both at the same time synced together, which promotes the show as well as the game. So now you're finding more people buying the game, even though it's older and it's out now, and watching the show and then winding up playing along with that game. So it's its own marketing now, but it's a matter of getting those that are in the marketing scheme for said companies to get into the analytics of how do we get this. Now, Adam, I'm so sorry for you that the analytics are going towards you, because there's a whole documentary about that on Netflix and how they gear it towards social media. And I wind up like throwing off the analytics by searching for things of how to make a bomb and things like that. So it scares them. So they don't send me those things. They'll say self-help or things like that.
Hey, listen, man.
Wow.
If you have Alexa or what is it, or Google, you know that if you just are discussing anything, next thing you know, on your feed,
You're on a list, man.
Yeah,
exactly.
You're gonna be on a list.
Exactly.
But I don't have any convictions or anything for them to worry about.
Oh man.
I'll be like, sir, why are you here at my door?
Listen,
I-
ever since I heard that like Alexa and Google actually, you know, they hear conversations and stuff like that, I say shit that's outrageous. Because whoever's listening, I'm gonna be like, yes, you keep on listening, buddy. You know, let's see what you do with that.
It's actually gotten further than that too, because if I don't know if you know it, but if you got a PS5, the controller has a mic in it.
That it does.
And if you don't mute it, it can hear all the conversations that you're having.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
So it hears me, you know, probably sneezing and farting all the time. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it explains why I keep getting, you know, Metamucil, you know, ads or something
Yeah, right.
like that.
Pepto Bismol.
All right.
And like,
So that being said, I mean, we're talking about like The Last of Us. We're talking about, you know, we talked a little bit about MCU. So, you know, the film industry is snagging all kinds of IP. These IPs are great on paper, have succeeded where they originally came from. You know, so from comic books to book series, all kinds of things where they're very successful and very popular with fans. So why is it that some of them have great success, like the MCU, and some have struggled huge, like the DCU or the DCU, how they call it now? What do you think is the problem, and how do you think they can fix it?
Oh, well, that's easy. The writing.
exactly.
It's all about the writing, and that has to, even from TV to film. And Rob, you and I had many conversations about Black Adam and how we could actually correct and fix that. But there are other things like the movie Firestarter that was a remake that came out too.
Right.
And that was hyped up and it did poorly. Spiderhead was another one that was on I'm forgetting what platform it was on. But
Is it Netflix or Amazon? I think. Yeah, Chris Hemsworth,
maybe Amazon, but I watched it and it was okay. It was an okay, decent idea of a thought and story. The Bubble was another one, but the thing that really disturbed a lot of people within it was based upon the pandemic, because nobody wanted to be reminded, regardless of an all-star cast that acted their brains out during that movie. Right. And I enjoyed it for what it was. But the one movie that actually led to success recently was The Menu. And what was it? There was another one recently. Glass Onion. Glass Onion was within the pandemic, but you had another all-star cast, but it was also done by the same person who did Knives Out.
Right.
And a lot of people see it as a loss, but I thought the story was very done, tongue in cheek, but not as good as Knives Out. Right. I still refer to the original. It's very much if somebody did a remake of Clue now, and I still go back to the 80s version. The marketing schemes that are going on, like with Black Adam, as I spoke about earlier, they relied heavily on the comic book enthusiasts, all the fandom that was out there, and The Rock going out there on his Instagram. He's trying to sell his Terramana, what is it? Tequila.
And he sells everything, man.
Yeah. Everything. He's trying to market it, including his own TV show. But the thing is that it failed miserably. I saw potential in some of the things that they did in the movie, but like I said, writing is the key factor in everything.
Exactly.
I have a vinyl of the music for the movie Firestarter that John Carpenter actually did for the new film.
Oh, wow.
And it's limited edition. I got that because, well, I'm just a huge John Carpenter fan, but
he's a great composer.
Yeah, he's him and his son did perfectly, and I listened just to music alone. Very good, very well done. But the thing is, did it make me really want to watch the movie? I've yet even to watch the movie. I've not watched it.
Don't bother. It's not worth it.
Well,
The great thing about John Carpenter making his own music is that if whenever it has to go to streaming and stuff, they don't have to get like permission and all that
Licensing,
stuff
yeah.
and licensing from like the original music, right? It's
Yeah.
just all him. So, but here's an interesting thing because with all this whole IP thing, Marvel has been extremely successful, even though we question Phase 4. But let's be honest, guys. I mean, this is a film company that has done 30 movies, and every movie has made money. They have yet to have a failure. They had critical failures, I would think. I mean, a lot of people didn't like one or whatever, but that could be subjective or whatever. But, the thing is, they still haven't had a failure. They have somebody like Kevin Feige that actually controls the whole thing, even though this, like I said, Phase 4, there's some questions there, but they still successful. Their Disney Plus movie shows have been critically successful, I guess, and at the same time, some of them, have gotten, shitted on. But the DCU has not, and it's because of no vision, I guess, and no one person to say, hey, I'm a fan of the DC, and this is how things should go.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Feige just says, hey, this is the plan that we have, while he still lets, I think, filmmakers have a little leeway to, to express themselves. It is still all within a plan. While it just seems like Warner Brothers is more of, hey, you're a filmmaker, go do what your thing. If you want to tie it to this, cool. If you don't, all right, we'll talk about it later. And then it's like, oh, well, the most successful movies, honestly, Joker and the Batman, which are not part of the entire universe for the DCU, are not part of that, So
Yeah.
they're more independent, more dark realm.
Right. And then you have
that's where they make their money.
Right. And then you have like Amazon, who acquired the rights for Lord of the Rings. And let's be honest, they didn't acquire all the rights. They just acquired part of the rights. So, and that's been met also with some criticism there. So you have a lot of companies that, they want to get all these IPs and they just really want to jump into and try to do the same thing Marvel does. So my question to you guys is, do you think, is Marvel just a one-off, or can there actually be other successful companies or film companies that can actually grab these IPs and actually make them successful? Because the biggest thing, I think, is, like you were saying, the writing. And the problem is that some of these writers, unfortunately, I'll give you a great example of that. In Star Wars, with the whole Star Wars franchise, they have been writers on shows that have not been Star Wars fans. They don't even know the Star Wars property that much. They just like, hey, I'm a writer. I'm just going to kind of get my, my name out there. If the show is successful, great. If it's not, well, moving on. As opposed to, hey, what if we got real fans who are really excited about making sure that, one, they respect the IP, two, that they really, really know the characters, the background, the story behind the whole thing, as opposed to, hey, here's a few books, read that and just write it and stuff like that. So I asked Adam, because you're a writer, what do you think about that?
So I have a lot to say when it comes to the whole DC thing, good and the bad. So
you too?
So here's the funny thing. So DC has been pumping out movies way longer than Marvel has, right? And they've always been good when it's just in their own bubble, right? Dark Knight trilogy, like you said, the Batman, the Joker,
right?
And that's usually because you're probably sticking to like a trilogy or whatever it is. So you control the writing more. It has a cohesive story because it's like, for instance, like the Dark Knight trilogy. It's Christopher Nolan. He was on it beginning to end, right? Now, obviously, when Marvel finally figured out this formula of, hey, we're going to create this universe, and DC saw that, obviously they wanted to catch up, and there is no catching up from 10 years of movies being released, right? But they brought on Zack Snyder, which, whether you like him, whether you hate him, I personally think he's great at what he does. They knew what they were going to get with him. He wasn't going to give him a Disney DC universe. One thing about him, all his movies are consistent with look, feel, tone, writing style. So personally, I loved his take on Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. I consider that like the holy trinity of everything. But
Right.
but you see with the old WB studio heads how they intervened, and it's never happened before where two different releases of a movie has ever came out, and you can clearly see like the difference when he has his not only like his version but like his like untethered version. Like his movie is 4+ hours.
Yeah.
That like Marvel does not even have a movie that's that long.
Yeah.
So like it was like his ultimate true version. I'm kind of glad it happened the way it did, because we probably would have gotten his 2.5-hour version of that movie. And now looking at his final version compared to what would have happened, I wouldn't know what he would have taken out that would have not hindered the movie.
Right.
And he was building a universe, and I've seen a lot of his interviews where he had a long plan, and his plan, although it deviated from some of the comic themes and everything, it would have been a really, really awesome story. And unfortunately, he had like a personal tragedy, so that trumps anything movie related. But it's just, and the same thing happened with David Ayer with the Suicide Squad movie. Like he, till this day, he claims how vastly different, and I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's just a part two of like what happened to what Snyder was doing. But that's the thing, you need that one person or pair of people to just oversee everything. When there's too many cooks in the kitchen,
exactly,
it's things are, styles are going to clash, stories are going to clash. There's no continuity, and I wish James Gunn all the luck, because I don't want to see that fail, regardless if I agree or don't agree with some of the choices he's made. At the end of the day, I'm just a fan. I'm equal parts DC and Marvel fan, but
right.
I have a soft spot for DC. They're like the underdog, unfortunately, in this whole scenario. And but the writing, it has to do with the writing. The writing is literally the foundation.
That is true.
Yeah.
No amount of good actors or VFX or promotion can fix bad writing. You're just putting perfume on shit, basically. That's basically what you're doing. Still.
And we know Gunn is a great writer too. I mean, what him and Zack Snyder did in Dawn of the Dead, man, which I didn't expect much from when they came out with that, and I was just blown away. I was like, this was so much better than I thought it would be.
Right.
And it was his best work.
I thought Peacemaker was great. I thought
although you gotta question Zack Snyder's way of how he manipulated Warner Brothers and HBO Max to redo his version. This is something that in film history has never been done.
Yep.
And I don't think it will ever get done again, because if you think about it, he's been accused of that he's the one that started the whole viral campaign. He hired a company to actually do these what they call these like these robots in social media to release the Snyder cut. There's a lot of things that are kind of point towards him. And you know what? I mean, I'll be very honest with you. If he did that and he got his vision out there, I don't care, because his movie was great. Now, if his movie sucked, then it would have been
basically stole that.
Yeah,
stole
he
that
did.
from Deadpool.
He did. He fucking pulled off what he did to Warner Brothers. I mean, I'm sure Warner Brothers is still going, I can't believe we gave that motherfucker so much money to do this whole fucking
that
thing.
That is true.
Yeah. But listen, they knew what they were doing. They knew that by releasing on HBO Max, it would have highly increased their subscribers.
But they didn't.
So they had an end game.
Right. But the problem was that it didn't increase anything. As a matter of fact, the studies actually showed that it really didn't increase the actual viewership or like more subscribers. It just gave him, and not only that, but then the new executive of HBO Max was like, well, we need content because this is actually pretty new. So they gave Zack Snyder like everything he wanted. He's like, oh, here, take it all and just give me something great. Now, I loved the film. It is 4 hours. So, at my age, I have to go to the bathroom twice. But that being said,
I go more than that.
But that being said, the great thing about that is you're home. You could pause that. But that being said, I mean, it's something I don't think we'll ever see again. I mean, I'm sure every filmmaker out there that has flopped wishes they could do a redo, like Zack Snyder did.
To give you credit to what you're stating, Rob, think about it. For the longest time as kids, we always wanted to hear and see the Donner cut. So Snyder did what Donner did as well, but Donner didn't get it until the 2000s.
Right.
And they were able to release it perfectly. Adam, to attest to what you were saying about somebody focal and doing everything, that is the independent filmmaker way of doing things, which is very, very much true. And if they had somebody who is director, producer, editor, and writer sometimes, and it would work, that's a Kevin Smith thing, because he literally writes, directs, doesn't produce. So I feel bad for Mosier, but the thing is that he does it as he goes.
Right.
Not many major film companies will allow that, and you put yourself on the line. Now, Kevin was able to make a comeback recently, but a lot of filmmakers nowadays, it's like throwing their hat into the pot to see where they stay. Patty Jenkins, who I love, and I love women film directors and writers that are out there, and they're not giving their credit where credit's due. But we are getting more of them now out there. The ones that are producers that I do not like are like Kathleen Kennedy, who is just trying to destroy the Star Wars and Indiana Jones IP that's out there.
Listen, man, Kathleen Kennedy and this is from a source that worked for DC, and he still has people that he knows. He's like, listen, she was always a glorified secretary. That's basically what she was for Steven Spielberg. And she's into like women power and all this stuff, and I don't know if you ever noticed during the whole Star Wars thing, she was trying to get all these female writers and all these female filmmakers to change the entire Star Wars thing. They just wanted to take it to a new direction. So this is what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you got all these filmmakers or all these studios that they want to get their hands on these IPs, but then they don't respect the IP.
No.
They don't respect.
Correct.
It's like, it became popular for a reason. It became popular because of the original vision of the creator and where it was going. And next thing you know, you put a few, $1 million there, and now you're like, oh, well, you know what? Now we're going to do it ourselves. This is what happened with The Witcher, where Henry Cavill stepped away, even though he said, oh, I want to step away for Superman. But he literally also wanted to step away because the writers did not respect the origins of The Witcher and how the stories are written. And he's a big fan himself. And he was like, if you're not going to respect the IP, I'm just walking away. So this is what I'm saying. Like, you got all these companies that, you got Amazon with, like, what was it? The Lord of the Ring, what's the show? The Rings of Power.
Rings of Power. Yeah.
Right. Which from what a lot of people are saying is like, this was garbage.
I fell off after the first 3 episodes. I never went back.
I just
My
heard
friends love it, and they've been covering it. Now, mind you, the source material that it should have been based upon, they didn't have the IP for.
Right.
And that's literally what it is. So they were working with what they were allowed to work with and write for it. So they still adhere to it. Same thing with House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon was just another phase for Game of Thrones. But it did work because they bordered on that cusp of what Game of Thrones disturbed people with or intrigued them for. It's like the Howard Stern effect. I want to see what they do next. You have somebody on there who has a foot fetish. You have a lot more dragons. You got all this weird writing and sexuality in it.
Yeah.
So they attracted what had originally drawn them to it.
Right.
But also had some great storylines in it. You had a Doctor Who candidate, Matt Smith himself in there.
Hey, let me tell you, man.
Drew it.
Let me tell you that show did so much better with less of a budget than Amazon did, which is kind of crazy. But so like Adam was saying, especially with James Gunn. What do you guys think of the whole James Gunn thing? Because I'm perplexed. I like James Gunn. I think that he did great with the Suicide Squad. What he did with Suicide Squad was amazing. What he did with Peacemaker is fucking epic.
Yes.
Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, if you guys seen like Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, probably one of the best Disney shows out there ever.
Yes.
Right. So I want to believe that he is really trying to do the right thing. But man, when you get rid of your three major players that everybody loves, and then you're kind of putting characters out there that I don't know, I didn't grow up with them, or at least I didn't hear most of them. Like I grew up with Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk. I grew up with Spider-Man. I grew up with all, these are characters that have been around for 50 plus years. Now it's like, oh, well, we're going to put some characters that are probably, maybe 5 years old or whatever. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like if you're going to restart this entire universe, man, start with your three biggest major hitters and then go from there.
That's another thing I think is with DC, that's a problem. It's with Marvel, you have so many great characters that they've developed over the years that are very popular. It's like with DC, it's like they've only just cultivated about 3 or 4 characters and that's it. And then after that, it's like a bunch of characters that you really don't know much about. And I think that kind of hurts it also. Because I mean, with the Marvel universe, they were able to like get all the top tier superheroes and give them all a movie. And with DC, it's like you only had 3 or 4 that are maybe the popular ones. And then you started venturing into other characters, which a lot of people may not know,
Well, I mean, if you're not a DC fan, then there's a lot that you don't know, because DC fans that are not Marvel fans, I'm sure have said, hey, I don't know some of these characters. Like, honestly, let's be honest. Iron Man was never a A-list character. Iron Man was like a secondary or third or, tertiary character in comic books.
Even though he was an original Avenger, it's just that nobody, that wasn't the go-to character. That is what Marvel had at that time.
He wasn't selling comic books like crazy. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he just wasn't a draw. But then all of a sudden you got, somebody like Favreau who said, screw it, I'm going to put Robert Downey Jr. in this, and made it into an amazing movie, which kicked off the entire MCU.
Well, that's because RDJ screwed up his career, and Favreau went out on a limb for him, and said, all right. And they actually had somebody else set aside to actually cast for it. And actually they had Tom Cruise mainly in point in thought for it, but he turned it down.
Yeah, but the Tom Cruise thing has been around for a long time. So whether he wants to do it or not, it's never been like an official thing that he said, yes, I was interested. It's always been kind of a rumor. Yeah. But that being said, I mean, there are a lot of DC characters, I think, that a lot of people still know. The problem is it's just the execution of it. And I honestly think it's just not the respect that it's actually getting. But maybe, I mean, who knows? James Gunn seems to want to do the right thing.
I think he does too.
Yeah.
And Kevin Feige gave him his blessing, and in the sense that we still have another Gunn movie coming out called Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3. And from what I could tell, and I'm seeing in there, I'm going to be crying. I'm going to be bawling from the beginning of the movie to the end, because I already know that we're probably going to be losing 2 main characters.
Listen, man, I cry at some commercials, all right? So that's just the type of person I become. But as a matter of fact, I mean, talking about a commercial, I mean, during the Super Bowl, we got a really good look at the Flash movie. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, I think it was great.
It looks, it got my attention again. And honestly, Robbie, you and I had both stated it on several podcasts about how, with all Ezra Miller's garbage that's been going on for the past year and a half, 2 years during the pandemic, and his actions, that we could actually get a good movie, but Gunn could actually change that and then just recast for a whole new DCU, which would be fine. But he's still going to keep Peacemaker. He's still going to keep Harley Quinn. There's certain IPs or characters that from that original series that he could keep, very much like with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with multiversal things,
Mm.
we could still see Keaton coming back
Right.
as a
Yeah.
major player, and we already know that from the Flash trailer that he is like. Adam, Patrick, what are your thoughts on those?
Well,
Those
I
characters.
was kind of wondering what Gunn's motive is for getting rid of some of the actors that have been playing these characters and keeping others. It's
I think it's
kinda,
all
I mean,
like
I was just
budget based. I think
yeah.
just Warner Brothers probably just can't afford these
Like,
Over
A-list
the
actors.
top,
I mean,
Yeah.
Henry Cavill is a top player. Ben Affleck,
Overpaid.
top player. Like there's just a price tag that comes with them. And
The thing
Yeah.
is that in Flash, it was rumored that all three came out already. Their stuff was filmed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
James Gunn just decided to take it off.
Yeah, the Flash movie went through. So I've been following this whole DC thing for a very long time. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and this movie has probably been re-edited 4 to 5 times with the ending,
Right.
especially with transition from old Warner Brothers Discovery, and now with James Gunn, and also what was going to happen with originally with Snyder. We're talking about at least 4 or 5 changes that were made,
Right.
and if Keaton was not a focal character in this, I'm sure one of those edits would have been, well, replace him with Affleck and just find a way to CGI him in. But the only props I do give James Gunn is that he's not throwing away what's been out right now, that he's finding a way to reconnect it. So at least like if you felt nostalgic and you wanted to rewatch any of the previous DC movies and kind of lead into his new universe,
Right.
it wasn't like this thing where he was like, okay, well, whether you watch these next 4 movies this year, it doesn't matter. It's not going to have anything to do with my movie, or his universe. And listen, I don't envy his position.
Right, but
it's a hard position to be in.
It is. And what really gets me is that it's like, oh, okay, so I'm going to change everything. So Aquaman 2, which, let's be honest, it's already getting really bad buzz from early reviews. Why should people actually invest, any time, or get emotionally invested in it? The Flash, honestly, I think got a lot of, because of Ezra Miller and all his problems with the law. I think there was a lot of reshoots on that, or I think because when I looked at the trailer, I was like, oh, it's a Flash movie, or it's basically a Batman movie with the Flash in it. That's what it seems.
It's Flashpoint with Batman in it.
Right,
Yeah.
but at least the trailer made it seem like, hey, like as you could see, they emphasized a lot on Michael Keaton, and they, and showing Batman and stuff
Michael
like
Keaton was a hook to get
There's
people in. That's the
Right.
And there's a lot more cameos that they're not talking about that's supposed to happen in this movie. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Reeves, maybe Brandon Routh, maybe we'll see. I would love a Christian Bale
Grant
just
Gustin
popped in and
that is a rumor. Also, that is definitely a rumor on that.
I mean, technically, Grant Gustin and Ezra Miller did their two-way cameo on that Flash. I didn't see the full episode.
That was meant for a purpose, and that's why they did that originally.
Yeah, and I mean, to tie it back, Zack Snyder had a plan, and the fact that, listen, this all tied back into budgets versus box office, right? So, Man of Steel cost probably $200 million to make, something like that, and it made like almost $700 million, which I think is, for a movie that has not came out in a very long time, new actor, new face. I thought that was great. They probably wanted more. Batman versus Superman, I think it was similar, but it made even more money. But they probably wanted more. Like,
right.
And in that one, they introduced a few more characters, right? Wonder Woman and all that stuff. And then obviously we know what happened with
Cyborg.
Justice League. But even with Justice League, that technically that still made money, but it lost compared to the last Batman and Superman movie. So, listen, there was no way that Zack Snyder could have caught up with everything. And the fact that they're still using the essence of like the Snyderverse, for lack of a better term, in the Flash movie, right? Supergirl's costume still looks like Man of Steel. Like it's an alternate timeline. You don't have to use that same, it's clearly different. It's clearly Zack Snyder's version of that suit, but they kept it. They changed the Flash suit. They, we're using Keaton's original outfit. So to me, it, like I said, it is weird when you're cherry picking what you liked from what he created from scratch with no, from his just vision.
Right.
And, I'm sure James Gunn is going to follow suit. He's going to do his version, and whether people like it or not, well, that remains to be seen. But it's, the Flash movie. I mean, I'm trying to like not go in with so many expectations. I'm hoping it's more of like a love letter, or like a final chapter, kind of like with Zack Snyder's Justice League. Like he kind of closed it off on that. And if this movie finds the right way to transition everyone out, same thing with Aquaman. I mean, I would have thought that Flash should have been the last of the 4 movies that were coming out this year, but it's like the second one.
Yeah,
Right.
because we got
It's weird.
Shazam.
So so I don't know how that falls with the timeline, unless Aquaman and Blue Beetle are going to be part of the new universe.
Well, they
somehow.
already canceled one of the movies too, Batgirl or
Oh,
Batwoman.
yeah,
Batgirl.
and
Batgirl.
I wanted to see Brendan Fraser as a villain so bad.
Well, we've seen Brendan Fraser in the DC universe. If you think about it, Doom Patrol.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true, but he's kind of hidden behind things. I mean, listen, guys, we could actually spend like an entire
Hours.
podcast
Yeah, Rob and I
talking
have done this before.
talking about just the superhero stuff out there. But just to kind of like just to end this segment very quickly, Adam just sent me a link to a text message saying that now Ben Affleck signs up as Daredevil for Secret Wars, and then the list of other actors that are supposed to be there, from Wesley Snipes, you have
Blade. Jeez.
Blade, Nick Cage for Ghost Rider, all these things. So that's going to be very interesting to see that. I mean, the fact that Ben Affleck signed up for another superhero movie is I actually find it kind of funny, because
he just wants to put the Batman suit on for his son again to show up at his birthday
probably
party.
so.
You know that.
So moving on. So, I mean, one of the things that, of course, in the industry, that I think especially has really affected the way people are watching movies. And listen, let's be honest, man, nowadays watching a movie is expensive. If you're by yourself, you're spending $15 to $20 to go to a movie. But when you got a family, right? But when you got a family, I mean,
that's $150 for the night.
It's like and you can't.
Rob, have you seen that AMC now charges more depending on where you sit?
Those
Exactly.
fuckers, yes.
Now they're doing stadium seating. Now, thankfully, and this is not a promotion for AMC, but I have the AMC stubs, so I can watch 3 movies
Same
a week.
here.
So I don't get charged those extra fees, and they're losing money with me. I think my peak year I saw 96 movies in 1 year. So they are not making any money off of me at all.
Right.
But I don't understand why they would do that if they're trying to get more people in the seats. Why are you charging more? And it's not like they're improving some of their theaters. I mean, I try to go to like, Dolby Atmos or IMAX if I can, but not all theaters are the same.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
everyone upkeeps them the same. So you're going to charge more, and like seats could be raggedy, sound system could be off, projector is dim.
Right.
It's
you
I
could
thought
go
that was
to
a
the
bad move.
independent theaters that are cheaper.
Yeah.
Not to plug
But they're not
anybody,
that much cheaper anymore. I mean, like, look, I mean,
no, you could go for $15 just for an entry fee.
it's still
obviously,
It's still $15, dude. I mean,
if you go to AMC, sometimes with those like Atmos, Dolby Digital, all that good stuff, you're looking at $20 to $25 just to get in that seat.
You're right.
So,
but when you're looking at
we still remember the theaters that cost $3 to get into a movie. If you don't,
No,
remember.
of course.
and
but-
they've ended matinees too. By
Yeah.
the way,
Yes, 'cause
since
now
the
they start-
pandemic.
They start around 1 or 2 o'clock now, and they don't have morning ones anymore. So
I used to
that's-
go to the matinee.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You have a lot of people that are what I would say, like, let's suppose you got a lot of parents that have kids in school, and they're like, I could probably take in a movie right now. And now that you're starting it at 2 o'clock, you're like, I can't do the movie because the kid comes out around 2:30 or 3, and I got to go pick up the kid.
Yeah,
so
and I have to take him with me to the damn movie, and that's more money.
Yeah, exactly. So these are all things like Adam, like you were saying. It's like, first of all, they're trying to charge a premium for the best seats. Granted that they're giving you a discount for the shitty seats. So hey, I walk into the theater and the only seat is in the front, up in the front where like the screen is about 3. Yeah, it's about 3 feet away from my face. but it's still, it's like for an industry that is trying to get people to go back into the theaters, I think you're right. I think it's a shitty thing to do. Now, the AMC stuff, I used to have it too. I stopped because I used to see like 2 or 3 movies a week. When that stopped, I was like, wait a minute, I'm spending more money on the membership than what I go to the movies. So it didn't make any sense for me. But that being said, but
also Regal has closed down too. They're closing down cinemas across the United States as well.
Right.
If you think about it, the only
and AMC
leader
is actually
one is AMC.
Yeah, AMC is actually in trouble too. I mean, from what I've been, seeing on their stock reports and stuff like that, they're still not doing very well. And for them to look, I understand that they're trying to get money in every possible way they can.
Yeah.
But to try to like do what they're doing and not, especially when you're releasing movies a month and a half to 3 months after it came out of the theater, people are just like, fuck this. I'm just going to wait 3 months or whatever it is and see it
for streaming
and see it on streaming. And that's it. If you said, hey, you know what? It's a year and a half before it ever goes on streaming, then people are going to probably spend the money. But I mean,
sometimes
I just think
it's even less time than that.
Yeah. No, and it's ridiculous
too that theaters don't really make any money off the tickets. It's all about concessions. That's why
it's all concessions. It's literally getting asses in the seat and getting them to eat the popcorn, the food.
I mean, they make a little money, but it's not like you said. It's not huge. As a matter of fact, and depending on the studio, I think like something like Disney, I think keeps about 70 to 80% of the proceeds compared to other studios that probably just do 60 or something like that. So it's really crazy how you see all these, and then of course movies are now getting to the point where like even the trailers are becoming very deceptive. So we all get caught up with the trailer of the movie and we get excited for it. And can the trailer kill a movie? Can it give you too much away? Or how many movies are there out there?
You?
That are different and tries to, so, I mean, listen, there's a lawsuit right now going on for the movie that came out called, yesterday, the Beatles movie that came out on Amazon. And so 2 guys went ahead and they rented this movie. One, I think, was in Maine. The other one was in California. And this is a class action lawsuit. And they sued the company because the actress Ana de Almas, gorgeous woman, comes out in the trailer, but doesn't come out in the movie. And they got so pissed off that they actually sued the company.
Well, of course, they paid tickets to see her, So.
Yeah, so they rented, it was $3.99 to rent it, but all of a sudden they sued for $5 million, a class action lawsuit, which guess what? They won because the judge said that trailers are basic. It was false advertisement, and trailers are actually a commercial. It is basically a commercial to actually bring in people.
Yeah, you're selling a product. You're not delivering on that product.
Yeah, you're not delivering on that product. Now, as filmmakers, and I would say this to like especially you, Adam, and you, Patrick, I know, and especially and also myself, I know what it is to be under a deadline. I know what it is to try to get something out. And sometimes you got your boss or whoever it is, give me something.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I'm sure filmmakers are actually under the gun and saying, listen, this movie hasn't even been made yet, but this is what I got. And even this, I don't even know I'm going to use it. And what do executives do? Fuck it. We're going to use it in the trailer. We got to get something out there.
Yeah.
So my, I ask you guys, I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Because this is big. I mean, this is going to get to the point where, and some people are saying, hey, so what happens, because this was actually Universal. So Universal actually came out saying, well, it's actually, freedom of speech. And the judge said, no, it's not. It's still a commercial.
Yeah. You're selling a product.
It's got the visual simulation.
Right. Yeah. So it's freedom of speech.
We're
and
expecting.
And it's a, artist representation and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, but in the end, it's still a commercial for a product. So now people are like, well, what happens if somebody says, hey, you know what? I saw that trailer, but that trailer seemed really good compared to your movie, which is sucked. Are they going to now start getting lawsuits?
Yeah, that's
So-
like Infinity War when that came out with that trailer. Everybody saw the Hulk within all the other heroes charging. We didn't see the Hulk in
Yeah.
there charging.
Well, I've seen that happen in other trailers before. I can't remember in the '80s. There were a few trailers where you'd see
Yes.
something in it, and then you go to the movie, and
It's not
it
there.
ended up on the cutting room floor. And
I mean,
Yep.
look at the Spider-Man
You know.
movie. They digitally took out a lot of scenes where there was 3 Spider-Man characters.
They
And you can
sug-
tell,
yeah.
and you see other characters get ghosts kicked in the face by
Yeah,
Right.
the lizard.
yeah,
and in that scenario, it's like, obviously you want to hide it because you want the surprise,
yeah.
but that's the problem, like especially when it comes to these superhero movies,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of them ruin the movie. Like to me, to this day, with Civil War, I was so upset that they showed Spider-Man in it. Like it killed it for me. I was like, I would have loved to experience that
That
cameo in
originally
the scene
without it.
in
Yeah.
there, and it just killed me that I had to
Right.
see it in a trailer, and that
Yeah.
that was the most exciting part. I mean, the movie itself was really good, but
Yeah.
like that would have been the highest of the high point.
That was a money
Right.
shot right
And,
there. They gave it away for free.
It's
Yeah.
it's I mean, there's an art to it, to doing a movie trailer, but to their point, if you're putting stuff in there, especially actors that you're saying is in the movie and then they're not in there,
Hmm.
yeah, that's very misleading. If you're taking something out,
Mm.
I think that's okay because you're trying to make the movie better. But if you put something in and then
Yeah.
when they go see it, it's not there. Yeah, it's like false advertising. That's basically
Right.
what it
It
is.
is.
Storm
Yeah.
in the background.
Yeah,
But
right.
when you actually do it, so here's a good example. So when you actually do a trailer and say, okay, you know what, I released this and I had to change, like you were saying, the Spider-Man stuff. They didn't want to show the other 2 Spider-Man. Then they included the Spider-Man. So for me, that was fine because I was like, oh, having the 3 Spider-Man, go in there, that looks better than even the trailer. But when you have the trailer showing you something and then you completely take it out, that's also different. But then there's also the false advertisement of like yesterday where you put an actor in there and then the actor is no longer, but and the trailer really revolves around that actor.
Yeah.
And it's just seriously, so there's been quite a few of those things, been done before. And then there's
Star
some other,
Wars.
so listen,
Rogue One
Mhm.
with
was
the TIE fighter coming up on Jyn Erso on the ramp,
yes,
and we don't get it.
we didn't get
and-
that. We didn't get her with the uniform on, with the Imperial uniform on or something like that. Like there was a lot of things with Rogue One that was so completely different. Now, lucky for them that movie still turned out to be a good movie.
Yep.
And
It made money.
but let me tell you, there's a few examples. So Planet of the Apes, which is stupid because here's an example.
The original or the remake? Tim Burton.
The 2001 Tim Burton one. There's
Okay.
a line in there that one said, "Get me the spaceman" or something like that, which never came out. That I
Mhm.
could understand. Amazing Spider-Man, like we were saying, you didn't see actually in Amazing Spider-Man, the actual Amazing Spider-Man movie, in the trailer, they were talking about what his family, like the secret behind him being
His
Spider-Man,
father and his mother.
right, and all that stuff,
Okay.
but none of that came out. That is false advertisement to me. That is like, hey, you're showing me one type of story, and then all of a sudden, that's not even in. Because I know how trailers sometimes could just take like little bits and pieces of the part of the movie, and you think that is something else. But when you have like an entire section which is probably trying to explain something of that movie, and then all of a sudden it's like not there completely.
Yeah,
that's false advertisement.
I think you're right. I think if you add something in there that's like a storyline that never appears in there, or even an actress, because a lot of people may not agree, or some do agree, but simply actors being in the movie get seats into the theater and
Correct.
and motivate people to spend money to see a movie.
Absolutely.
They're like, oh, this actor is in this. I mean, these guys saw. I mean, Anna de Armas. I mean, she's beautiful, but she's also a really good actress. And it's like people go out to see her, and then you go see the movie, and she's not in it. And you're wondering, it's like, I just spent money on this, and she was part of the reason I spent money on this.
Correct.
And she's not in it. So
no, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, Suicide Squad, the one from 2016, the one that wasn't that very good with Jared Leto. If you looked at the ad campaigns, most of it was him. Most of it was the Joker.
Yeah.
And when you look at the movie,
he's only in there for like maybe 15 minutes.
Well, and that was the whole thing of this Ayer cut, right? Like he says he has so much more footage and so much more storyline, and the studio took it out. And I mean, listen, that's just the nature of that hierarchy, you know. If
Yeah,
they're
the
the ones
nature
who's
of the
carving up the
beast of
money,
the
they're gonna have the final say. But yeah, if it's borderline like tricking you to go into the movie just to think you're coming in to see one movie, I mean, there is like a sense of like, oh, like, you know, oh, I like this plot twist, it was great. But like if they literally told you, no, you're gonna come to watch this type of movie, and then they give you something completely opposite, yeah,
Yeah.
that's extremely misleading, because that means that they weren't confident enough to sell you what they had, so they had to come up with something else to trick you to get in there.
Right.
And
And
that's not creative freedom or freedom of speech. That's just manipulation.
No, exactly. And I mean, that's not artistic freedom or nothing like that. That's just them trying. And not only that, but you don't see them going back to do a different trailer. You see
or
them
even
writing,
put it into a director's cut too.
right? But you see them writing that trailer all the way till release date, and all of a sudden you go and it's like, well, what happened there? You know, so yeah,
They were playing magicians.
yeah. But
They
there's
were
some
playing sleight of hand.
There's a few movies out there like I Am Legend. There's a scene there where one of the vampires or whatever is screaming in his face. That never came out in the original. That came out in the actual DVD extras, which now there's going to be a second movie that's based off of the alternate,
on the director's cut,
right?
The other cut, the alternate cut.
Yeah, we'll see if that's good. In Iron Man 2, there's a really cool scene with Robert Downey Jr. They're in the back of the plane, and Pepper Potts takes the helmet, kisses it, throws it off, and he jumps and he goes, "Ah, you complete me," or something like that. Never in the movie. And it's such a cool scene.
Yeah, I remember that.
But it was just never in the movie. Black Adam had a few scenes like that too. Like he was flying next to two jets and he actually hits a wing. That never came out in the movie.
I mean, I think Deadpool does that too. Like they do one set of jokes for the trailer and then a different set of raunchier jokes for the movie. That could just be for ratings, but
yeah, well, I mean, that's different.
Yeah.
When you have what is it? When you have a scene where it's such a great scene that, all right, we can't curse on TV or anything like that. We'll put the part that it's still the same scene. It's just now you're changing it now to like, the foul words. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. It's just if he said something like, hey, and all of a sudden that kind of throws off the plot where you're like, oh shit, that's something that's kind of cool. And then you don't see it. Then you're like, or in some cases where they manipulate, it's still the same scene, but then the actor goes in and says a different line. You're like, what the fuck, man? So
you guys remember that? I don't know if any of you guys remember back in the day. It's like R-rated or very violent or movies that had a lot of swearing in it. They used to cut two versions, one a cleaner version and the original version for TV for public viewing on TV and stuff. Yeah, remember that?
No, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you think game companies should be also held liable for stuff like that? Because if you think about it, while they're not movies, but here it is, you're like a big gamer, you want to play this game, and all of a sudden you see, I mean, look, YouTube, it has become like one of the best places to go see previews for everything or any information out there. But you go and see game footage and, this is real game footage from, the actual game. And then you get the game and you're like, this is not the fucking game that I just saw. So,
one of the most famous cases of that is Aliens, Colonial Marines,
right?
Where Rockstar, I mean, it had been in development for so long. They took it over, they completed it, and they go ahead and they're saying, not Rockstar, but it's Randy. Shoot, I'm drawing a blank right now, but that's something that a lot of people who saw that footage from E3, they were buying that game because they saw that footage, and then when they got it, it was nothing at all like that.
Right.
And they were like, "Oh no, this is in-game footage."
Yeah, no, and I think it's bullshit because all of a sudden you're thinking, "Oh shit, I'm getting a great game," and next thing you know, you're not. But it's the same thing that movies are doing, which is it's false advertisement. And then the problem is, especially with physical media, is that once you open it, you can't just say, "Hey, I want my money back.
I want to return it.
I want to return it."
It definitely should
I feel
apply.
like it's a little bit worse with the game because the movie, you go see it 2 hours, you're good. The game, you're going to try to get
20
your money
to
back
25
on it.
hours of your own life.
Well, Well, not only that, but you watch a movie, you spend $20. Okay, that didn't work out. Fucking games nowadays are $70, $80, $90, $100.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just gave all this money for this game and none of that is in there. So
and it's not like a movie where you watch it for 2 hours to see if a scene's in there. You know, you have to play it for like 25, 30 hours. And then it's like before you realize the scene's not in there. What do you do then?
And then
honestly, if you think about it, going back to the theater, and I've seen people actually get their money back in a theater at times, but going back and saying that, it's like, I want my money back. Why? Well, it's just like going back to a hooker. I want my money back. They're not going to give you your money back. They got your money. They're down the block already looking for the next gig.
I haven't been with hookers, but I don't know. I don't know if I got to ask if somebody ever asked for their money back.
I guarantee you it's happening.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I didn't pay for that.
Well, I know.
Who reimburses? Yeah,
I know movie theaters have a rule that you can get your money back, but it has to be, what is it?
Before half the movie's over, or something?
Right? Or no more than 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. No more than 20 minutes, then you could get your money back. But if once it passed that, it's like, well, you
hold on. I could have did that with Highlander 2 when I saw that in the theater.
Oh my God! Yeah,
my brother walked out within 5 minutes. He didn't even get his money back. But me and my buddy Chris, was sitting there. We waited till the end till it got better. It never got better.
It's like, it reminds me of that scene in what is it? Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Judge Reinhold's working in that place, and the guy comes back. He goes, "I want my money back on this breakfast. It was overcooked or something." And Judge Reinhold, well, you ate most of it. It's like pretty much all of it was gone. The guy wanted his money back.
What do you guys think about the entire Netflix ad model? Netflix has spent a lot of money on projects that have not gotten great reviews. These large projects are made to attract more subscribers. Problem is that Netflix has not released their numbers, and we never know if viewing hours have gotten new customers or is it just existing customers when they say, oh, yeah, has, 50,000, viewing hours and stuff like that. So for this company, it has been losing money, and the company's value is half of what it used to be. The ad model is supposed to recover some of this money. Should they have done this years ago? They've always been, they've always said that we will never do this. What is it, our business model or anything like that? But now they are. So,
but they're also pushing password locking, and
you can't
so that
share,
people can't share.
Right.
And they kind of backpedaled on that a little bit. And now they're still pushing this. I think a lot of the subscribers that are at the premium at this point, paying $18 a month, are not within that model. So they're looking at those results and those numbers. And then for those people who are just jumping on for the ad model.
Right.
But if you think about it, the ad model, you could find other things on Pluto TV or Tubi that will get you the same thing with only a minute's worth of commercial time and still get the same movie.
Right.
So they have to compete with that now. So Pluto is becoming and blowing up now. Netflix is on the wayside in the sense that they're hemorrhaging money with all the content that they actually create, their own movies.
I mean,
so
listen, every streaming service out there wishes they still had the numbers that Netflix has, because they're still way up there, but they're not. They don't have the quality of their shows has really gone down.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong. I think for filmmakers who want, hey, I can't get a studio. Might as well go to Netflix, which that was the big thing. It's like, hey, if I could go to Netflix, I could, possibly, get something there. Because let's be honest. I mean, they almost say
Adam Sandler.
Yeah, they say almost
he's got a multi-million-dollar movie deal.
Exactly.
He does a movie for them like every couple of weeks or something.
I mean, looping it back to Zack Snyder, he has Rebel Moon coming out, and that's going to be like his version of like Star Wars. Actually, I think it's actually the script that he pitched to Disney for Star Wars. They turned it down.
Yes, exactly.
He's rewriting it for this, and that could become a whole new IP. That could be a whole new universe, and it's supposed to be like rated R. So think of like the Star Wars universe, but if they actually curse in English.
Right.
So it's, I think that's what they're looking for. They're looking for like that gold mine that's gonna just give them that consistent fan base and cash, and then they can maybe double down on
Right.
something else that's a similar venture. Because in the beginning, they had a lot of good shows that were like,
Yeah, they did.
like Orange is the New Black. I think that was like one of the first ones that made them blow up.
Yeah.
And and then they have a lot of limited series too that are pretty good. They have a good selection for like foreign films and stuff. But I mean, to me, I still think it's crazy that if I'm paying for a streaming service that I'm getting ads. I just don't understand that. Like, that's why I don't watch cable, because I don't like commercials. And
I mean, but listen,
well, cable was originally cable was originally pitched. It was like you don't get commercials.
correct.
And then literally later on down the road, you're getting commercials.
Yeah.
Right.
Very much like the DVD format, and going back to physical media in its infancy, or even VHS. You didn't get trailers or anything in the very beginning when you put. I'm sorry, I'm dating myself at this point. In 1980, where you put in a VHS tape, you didn't get a trailer in the very beginning. It went straight into the film.
Right.
Same thing with DVD when it came out, marketed saying you're not going to get these trailers. Then they moved to that medium of, you're going to get 2 or 3 trailers. Then you could skip them or hit menu and go straight to it. Now it's getting to the point with, like, even with streaming, it's going to go to that. And I had said this and stated this years ago, and people said, you're crazy. No, now it's coming a reality. So a lot of people with the cut the cable or cut the cord and go straight to streaming to get away from cable, because their cable fees are way too expensive. I don't own a cable box. I do everything streaming.
Yeah, but
And,
listen, nowadays, even if you decide to go streaming, it's almost as much as actually, the cable. I mean, especially with all the fees going up. Yeah,
you
so
get more content, and you can cherry pick what you want to see.
and
Exactly.
that is true. The thing is that now, you're getting commercials, but then again, it worked for Hulu, because Hulu actually has a an ad model, and then they also have their non-ad model, which I think, has worked for them very well. They're not as big as, Netflix. But Netflix, I think what they need to do is just cut back on some of the crap, because their whole thing was, and what happened during the pandemic was that every studio out there saw that everybody was staying home. We need to put as much content out there as possible.
Yeah.
And so they spent a shitload of money. And that's the problem that Disney, that's the problem that Netflix had, that HBO, all of them had, that they put so much content out there, they weren't making money. They were hemorrhaging.
Disney started
money.
out at the lowest tier right before the pandemic.
Right, but they were still
everybody
losing money.
Jumped on,
right,
and they were still losing money. Now they jacked up their prices for Apple TV Plus, and as well as for Disney Plus itself.
Right.
So,
yeah, but it's just, I mean, I think that having the ad model, I don't mind. My problem with this is that Netflix has their top tier. For those of us who, have 4K TVs and stuff like that, their top tier model, the top tier membership, is the only way that you could get 4K. And I think that's wrong. I think, if you're because what do you get? 6 accounts or something like that? I mean,
it's up to your cable and internet costs all along.
Right. But the thing is, like, okay, so you get 6 accounts. You got 4K. Well, if I'm alone, and I don't want to share my Netflix, why can't I just fucking get one account with 4K? No, so one account, they don't do that. So it's like they're gouging, I think, the consumer out there so much. And now, of course, they're going into this ad model. I think what they should have done is what Disney Plus did in the beginning, which is everybody in the beginning with Netflix was like, oh, it's great to binge all these movies. And then Disney Plus comes out and says, hey, we're going to give you The Mandalorian, but you better see that shit once a week. Yeah. Well, guess what? That made people actually talk about The Mandalorian, at least
we
for the
went
next
back to the water cooler stage.
Exactly. The next 12 months, we were talking about it, as opposed to, hey, I just saw Stranger Things. It was awesome. Talked about it for a week, and then after that, forgot about it.
Yeah.
On to the next thing. And I think that's where the problem is like they have the ability to get, do good things and do really good quality stuff. It's just, it's the way they're feeding it to people. They're feeding it they're just shoving it down people's throats.
They're making crack addicts right now.
Yeah, but and then the problem is that, hey, you know what? If I show an entire show and this guy binged it for one day, I still have to give him more for the next day and the next day and the next day, as opposed to saying, hey, we're just going to stretch this for the next, I don't know, 2.5 months, well, guess what? Now you're going to stay around for 2.5 months.
Yeah, or
I mean,
look at Amazon Prime.
yeah.
They do the same thing. They'll drop like maybe 3 episodes of The Boys at once.
Right.
And then after that, it's episodically.
Mm.
And then you're salivating and I spread it out. Now, Rob, you and I, when I was doing it with Steve, we were doing it episodically. And then you came in to fill in the void. Well, Steve was gone. But the funny thing was, is it was long after, or at the time, I think it was at the time, at the very end, we started it and you were like, wow, this came out. We have to do it. And we have to do it now because you have to jump on it.
Mhm.
But the thing is, we didn't get all those episodes at once, and it made us work because,
Yes.
as podcasters, we want to be able to watch it, get our content out right away so people could listen to us. Or just like anybody at the water cooler, I have to watch it right away so I could have something to say because I know somebody at the water cooler is going to say something. I was like, no, I didn't see it yet because everybody else has to watch it first.
Exactly. So yeah, no, it's something interesting when Netflix, announced that. I was actually very surprised. So that Discovery bought out HBO.
Mhm.
And so, but Discovery's canceling a lot of projects from HBO Max and WB. They're taking a lot of the animation movies out off of Max, so they don't have to pay royalties to the creative teams that made them. They hired James Gunn, of course, to revamp the DCU. Can they turn around the streaming service to put out quality content and attract more subscribers? So, what do you guys think? I mean, is that something that's possible? I mean, first of all, I think that it's kind of a shitty thing, especially as content creators.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Did they execute this just recently? Because I'm still seeing all the Superman stuff. I saw Tim Daly stuff.
They have taken out a lot of animated stuff. Yeah, they've taken a lot of stuff because they just don't want to pay. Because you got to remember, every time they stream that, somebody's getting paid.
Yeah.
So I think
the actor, the writer, everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like just even artists, So I mean, Patrick being an artist, I mean, he could definitely tell you that, hey man, you put your heart and soul into something, and then all of a sudden, they're you're getting paid for it, and then somebody comes around and is like, yep, we're not going to show that because then I don't want to pay you.
Yeah, that's kind of.
And I think
I don't know. I think
I was gonna say, I think this is Gunn's plan on. I think he said across animation, TV shows, and movies, he's trying to create a single universe. So whether that's the real excuse or not, but I guess to get people used to his singular vision, I'm sure like the back end is probably going to be just to save money. That's what it all boils down to. The money is what calls the shots.
Well, the problem is that HBO, I mean, honestly, HBO has racked up a huge, bill, and they're in the red. And the fact that Discovery bought out a company that was already in the red, and they're trying to figure out how to actually save money and make money off of this. Part of me understands why they're doing the things they're doing, but at the same time, it's like, well, you probably shouldn't have bought them out if they were that bad.
And also, as a fan, you don't want them, because if they bought out everything that HBO Max has, which is a lot of WB property,
right? People
are gonna go there and they're like, well, there's nobody else that could actually have that WB property unless I go to iTunes or Vudu or anything else like that, or Amazon, to buy it. And you're like, well, I had it at my monthly cost where I didn't have to worry and I just could go to it easily. It's only basically aggravating them to the point where it's like, I don't want to keep spending all this money on the product that I've seen, but I want to see it over and over again. And it's only going to make people more pirate or torrent to get that stuff for their own being, because a lot of people are actually using Plex as their own servers and allowing others to watch those things because other people can't afford these like streaming companies,
right,
as it were. And other people, it's like, oh wait, I can't even get that. It's like,
and that's
where
the
can
problem.
I find it?
Yeah, that's the problem with, I think, streaming services and things like that, which is everything's about license nowadays. So it's like, hey, I have the license for 6 months or a year. Then after that, it goes away. Then it comes back another year later. So within that year that you don't have it, you're like, well, shit, I can't see what I always wanted to see. And that brings me to, physical media, so physical media has been having a bit of a comeback. So vinyl sales have actually been doing very well year after year. As a matter of fact, when you see the trend, it's just going up. Now, is it going to be like, CDs the way they used to? No. But there is a trend where the vinyl is coming back up. Having that nostalgia. Yeah. And movies haven't gone away, yet either. I mean, I think retailers like Best Buy likes to put out limited edition steelbooks, which have given that industry a bit of a push. If you think about it, this is a section of Best Buy, and I'm sure it's not only Best Buy, but Walmart and all the big box stores.
Target, Walmart, they all have their own steelbooks.
Yeah, no, they actually don't. They have more of the lenticular
more content.
Yeah. But the thing is that what they have is they have a smaller section than when they used to. And at one point, just like CDs, music CDs, which went away from Best Buy completely, the movie part is still there. And I think like the whole steelbooks, I'm a big steelbook buyer myself, but I've noticed that fucking old movies that were from 20 years ago, they come out with a steelbook that has an awesome artwork on it. I'm buying the movie. Which is crazy.
Which is they're re-releasing
4K and stuff like that, which is
with the actual digital code,
right? Which makes me happy the fact that which makes me happy the fact that hey, none of these streaming services have what I want. Guess what? I got a disc that I could watch it. So I think I mean, I always tell people, I love buying my media, even though I barely have any room for it. But you know what?
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I still do. I kind of cater to my favorites though at this point, and because of the fact of the size of it, and then I find myself selling it because it's like, well, I could back it up on a hard drive because you could easily rip it from a DVD, let's say, or even if you have a Blu-ray player in your PC, you could easily transfer that in full resolution and then back it up to your drive, and then you could just, if you have the original case with the UPC, you could sell it and be like, all right, well, I'll just put my hard drive to my DVD player or my Roku and I could watch it in full streaming aspect.
Yeah, but remember, not everybody's technologically savvy like you. I mean,
I know that, but I'm just stating.
Most people are just going to buy their media. So do you think people are just getting tired of the license limitations that affect them? I mean, that bad that they're just like, screw it, I'm just going to buy my shit.
Well, there's also license limitations within iTunes, Vudu, and all those other places. You're buying the license when you pay for that movie. Yeah. I've already had 2 movies go away back in a day that I had, and I'm like, I had that movie. Where'd it go? Went to my Vudu, went from my iTunes, because now we got movies everywhere.
Right.
That app where kind of, but there's certain companies that don't work with that. So you actually have to look at it on your Vudu, or you have to look at it on, and then you're stuck with it, or it just happens that they lost the license to it and it just goes away. So a woman actually tried to sue Amazon based upon this for the fact that she bought her movies and didn't realize it's like, oh, I'm buying a license. No, I bought the movie. I own the freaking movie. They're like, no, you own the license. But a lot of people, and I had a conversation with a coworker like over a year ago regarding this. And I said, yeah, but I've had movies go away. And he goes, wait, what? I said, yeah, remember, I'm forgetting the name of the company that they actually talked about that we used to use to get your online code and then put it in.
Was it Violet something?
Violet.
Yes.
Yeah, Violet.
Yeah. And I had like 2 or 3 movies. They disappeared because of that. But they did transfer over to Vudu and everything else and were there in my library. They're no longer there. You have to go back and buy them. So then you have to cherry pick and say, hey, is it a Blockbuster night? Is this on sale because it's so old? And then you just like have that on your list. And it's like, oh, $4.99. I'll get that now. So I have that license for another 10 years.
There's something about having the movie like you can hold in your hand too.
That
the way
I
still have
agree.
all my-
Yeah, no.
I know people that have laser discs still.
Listen, as
man.
a big movie fan, I mean, I think part of being, a cinephile and and really loving these movies is the fact that you can have that physical media in your hands, just like in the old days where we used to have vinyl and we can actually read the liner notes, and those liner notes really gave you more information about what you were listening to. And there was something very special about holding that piece of media in your hand, because you're like, damn, I own it. It's mine. But not only that, it's like, hey, man, let me lend this to you, or let me, you got to hear this.
Oh, don't lend out your vinyl, dude. I got vinyl back to scratch.
But I'm just saying that, it's like, I think the fact that having your media with you, and let me tell you, one time we had like a microburst here in Connecticut. And a lot of people were without internet. And I remember a shitload of people going to Best Buy buying movies,
DVDs, and Blu-rays.
DVD players. And I was laughing because I was like, I already got my shit. So,
same here,
I keep my favorites that I go back to for those blackout days. Exactly. I have a generator.
But I think licensing, I mean, look, I understand that content creators got to, get paid. And I understand that, yes, if these people are going to make money off of it, then they should pay those who made the movies. And I know that there's contracts and all these things that it's like, listen, for a limited amount, yes, you can have these movie for that. But I think as the consumer, you get screwed at the end where you're like, shit, I'm paying for your streaming service because I like watching this. And once in a blue moon, I love watching this one damn movie 1,000 times if I want to, and now you all of a sudden, it's gone. It's gone. So I'm a big.
There's actually a movie I actually looked for recently. You'll laugh.
Uh-oh.
It's a movie that had Mark Price, Skippy from Family Ties in it, and it was a horror movie from 1986. Can you guess the movie?
Is it a vampire movie?
There you go.
Trick or Treat.
Frank
wow.
got it.
Wow. Damn, dude.
Cannot find it on iTunes, Amazon, or anything really right now.
Yeah.
Listen, I can't.
You have to hold on to your DVD.
I cannot find the movie Near Dark anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw it
Anywhere.
on DVD.
Not streaming.
No, not on streaming at all.
Yeah.
I have looked everywhere. They
so
don't have it.
When we go
I think,
to
wait, they have it in
Fan Expo, you can find it. Bootleg.
All right. Well, moving on that one. So last, I mean, we know that Bob Iger coming back to Disney was huge because, as we all know, Bob Iger really made Disney very profitable.
Yeah.
Shapack has done shit that just
horrible
has made has not made money, has been criticized for taking
a ton of money too.
Yeah, taking the company in the wrong direction. From the Fox deal to even the Lucasfilm deal, there has been many things that have been done that are questionable. What do you think of Iger coming back to Disney to bringing back Disney to a profitable point?
I think it's great in the sense that they're not price gouging everybody that goes to Disney World or Disneyland.
They're already talking about cutting costs too. So
every
it's
park,
like, as soon as he got in there.
Yeah. And really what makes the park live is the people in the streets, kind of like in movies, asses in the seats.
Yeah.
And you need those people there. As soon as you're only catering to the super rich, not to pull a phrase from Jurassic Park, but that's literally how they're treating people. It's like, oh, I can't take my kids to Star Wars land.
Edge.
Edge. Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
And because it's so expensive. And I have to pay $150 to get my kid a lightsaber that's custom made or a robot. And then on top of that, the drinks that I have to go. It's only one bar.
Listen, lightsabers, there's one person in this podcast that has a shitload of those, and we know who you are.
Not me.
That's Patrick. So no, actually,
I got one.
You got one.
None.
Oh yeah, I got none. No, I think I got one. Patrick has about 50 of them. I don't know.
Damn.
No, but the thing is that because Shapack, I mean, and Patrick, you living in Orlando, I guess you know this, but the fact that not only are you paying a lot of money to get into those parks, but now you're paying a premium to get on certain rides.
Yeah, I mean, when I was, I had a Disney pass for all the parks. I had it for about 5 years.
Which went away.
Well, it went away. I actually canceled mine because it was just too much money, and I wasn't going there as often as I did, so I just kind of canceled it. But when I was using, I was going there all the time. But even if you get in for free, the money you spend in there once you're in there is still through the roof. I mean, I went to Galaxy's Edge when it first opened. I went on opening night. I actually rented a hotel there, and I stayed there with a few friends. And then when it opened, I mean, this was like 4:30 in the morning. Everybody started piling at, Hollywood Studios, because you had to go in through there, and there was like a waiting thing, and you waited there for an hour, and then they let people in. They let people in gradually to get in the place. And then when you finally got in there, it's like everything was so packed, you couldn't get into anything. Mark was saying, there's only one bar in there. And the last few I got in there a few times because I lived there and I was going there every weekend. So, but when you go there, you have to put your name on a list through an app. And then it tells you right away whether you can even get in that day or not. Now, imagine somebody who drives there 3 hours or, 15 hours from out of state or flew in from out of state. And then they've spent all this money there and they go in there and they say, you're not going to be able to get into this bar today, or you're not going to be able to get on this ride today. They need to figure out a new system for it, man.
Right.
Because it's just
so
ridiculous.
Bars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that was all Shapek, because Shapek is the one that came up with all that crap. Is like they're gonna from what I hear, the food is absolutely outrageously expensive.
Yeah, it's always anywhere you go in Disney, it doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah, so
even the places they say are cheap, it's still higher price than anything you'll be able to find outside of the place.
I've been going to Disney once a year for the last couple of years, trying to just because I haven't been there in 15 plus years. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go back now. All these cool things are there. I'm actually going to go next month to Animal Kingdom.
Right.
But
Avatar.
But I
Avatar.
That's my first thing there. But it's funny that you say all this, because when I went, my first trip about 2 years ago was to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And if I didn't get the heads up from a buddy of mine who basically had to give me his itinerary, I would have missed out on everything. He literally said, "Oh yeah, you got to get up at 5 a.m, and at 5:30 you have to go on the app and reserve." It's one of the rides, the Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah, it's the Rise of the Resistance, correct?
And
that's the one.
And he was like, "No, but you literally got to do it at that time frame. You cannot
if you miss it by a couple of seconds, you'll either miss out completely or you'll be at the end of the day. It's okay, you get on there at 6 o'clock.
Exactly what happened. What? Literally the second it hit 6 a.m., I hit reserve. I was 240 something in that half a second. That's how it jumped on the line. And then even when I got to the park, my reservation kept on getting pushed back because of just overflow. And I wound up making it, but it wound up being, my original reservation was for 10 a.m. and then I didn't get on the ride to almost 4:30.
Yeah. Well,
and
you
I
got
had
lucky.
To reserve my food. I have to you have to plan your day. So actually, I already planned my entire 4-day stay over there next month. So I have to be in the mood for whatever food I just picked, whether I like it or not. I
got to tell you, you got lucky, because when you got there, it's the fact that you even got on there and you go there once a year, that was luck. Because I used to go there every weekend. I'd go to Disney to just get lunch, and sometimes just go into Epcot, and then I'd leave out the rear. I don't know if you know, there's a rear exit in Epcot, and you can walk to Hollywood Studios from there. And I used to walk by the Swan Hotel. You take a walk down the little river and you go in there, and then I'd go and hang out there and then go back jumping around. And even me, who used to go there all the time, I only got on Rise of the Resistance, I think it was 3 times. And every other time it's no, you can't make it there, which I didn't care. I was all right, I'll try another time because I'm always here. But I can only imagine somebody who comes in from out of town, spends so much money, and then you don't get on the ride, and then what do you have to do? Walk around and spend a lot more money on food and stuff and
crap that you don't want.
Exactly.
It's funny because
and you probably
I got my lightsabers.
Yeah,
I got 2 lightsabers when I first went there, and then when I went there the second time to a different park, I went to Disney Springs thinking that I could just get something in the Star Wars store. And they're like, "Oh no, you can only get the lightsabers at Galaxy's Edge." And I'm like, that's a ripoff. But then when I went there most recently, now they sell the lightsabers in the in the store, so they're definitely making changes. That, I mean, it would make sense. You're only losing money. That's an easy 150 plus for someone who doesn't have to go to the park to get the lightsaber. You're just making more money. So hopefully they
Gonna get a
continue those
bad
changes.
survey.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, when I went there, I mean, I know you got 2 lightsabers. I didn't get any there because Rob knows I'm like a lightsaber snob. It has to be accurate down to the millimeter. And I looked at it, I'm like, nope, this is not accurate.
Oh my
enough for me. I'm
God!
not
So
getting it, so
Wow.
let me give you a little insight into this man. So
oh god,
this is a guy that he actually goes into the replica prop forums, right? And those guys there are fanatics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he will look, I mean, you'll have somebody that's even crazier than him that has actually researched every little part of the original lightsaber. You have some people that will craft certain pieces that you can no longer get.
Yeah.
So when you look at this man's collection of lightsabers, you would think this shit came out of like Lucasfilm's vault or something like that, because it's just his whole thing is about making. He has that Han Solo blasters. What else? He had. I mean, if you look at the
I
background,
got the Blade Runner.
He has a Blade Runner blaster.
Blade Runner.
All
This
kinds
is
of stuff.
Sid
The
Mead's
original
blaster. Yeah.
So he's that kind of person, you know. But going back to the Disney stuff, I mean, one thing that got criticized, of course, was the Fox deal. So we all know that Disney wanted to pretty much get their, especially the Marvel properties, and with that, of course, they got stuff like Alien, they got stuff like
and they got ESPN.
Yeah. Well, they had that already, but the Fox deal was, I mean, the amount they paid was insane. Same thing with Lucasfilm. I mean, a lot of people thought that, hey, giving $6 billion for Lucasfilm was...
That's something I never understood. They paid that much money for it, and as soon as they got it, what did they say? Let's change it.
Let's change it.
What did you just pay for? What did you just pay for? You just paid $6 billion for something. As soon as you get it, let's change it.
Exactly.
You know?
So hopefully, I don't know. I'm really pushing for Iger, because I think like this year, especially, there's only 2 Marvel movies coming out this year as opposed to like the previous years. And I think it's only 2 Disney plus Marvel stuff coming out. But
Feige actually mentioned it recently too. He wants quality over quantity at this point. He's starting to see there's a lot of because people critiqued it when I covered She-Hulk on Panels to Pixels. A lot of people were upset with the CG because they felt that it was lacking.
Right.
Moon Knight did very well based upon story and what we got. We got Oscar Isaacs, but then it's like hit or miss. A lot of people weren't happy with Miss Marvel when we got that on Disney Plus as well, but I was entertained and had fun. They changed it a little bit, but the thing is that I think with Feige right now at this point, it's quality over quantity, because think of the Eternals, think about a lot of the hours and everything that they have to do. They literally slave those people to do effects towards the very end.
Oh yeah, that industry right now. That industry right now. I mean, the way they're treating, I mean, visual effect artists and the amount of work that they're trying to churn out is just like the gaming industry, which is, you know, you got these companies that are making huge games. They're trying to make huge money off of it, but the actual creators and the artists are getting paid crap, and they're being worked to death. So maybe, hopefully, that's something that can possibly change in the industry, because honestly, and I myself as a 3D animator myself and artist and stuff like that, where I used to be, I mean, I gave it up a long time ago. I got out of it because of being nickel and dime to death, and and the how demanding people are for what little you get back, and it really took away from my love of that medium. I commend Patrick for continuing to do that, because I mean, that's his love and that's what he does. And lucky for you, you have actually landed in a great place where, at least you're valued as an artist that way. But unfortunately, a lot of these, especially a lot of these large companies, film companies especially, and it doesn't matter with who it is, whether it's a graphic artist, whether they're writers, whether it's even directors. I mean, up and coming directors, I think the way they get pushed, and I think the way they get, the amount of pressure they put on them, and just because they're trying to get into that industry and hopefully make, a mark where they could, become the next Spielberg and, and stuff like that. But It's hard. It's hard. And unfortunately, these companies, it's a business. I mean, that's why they call it show business, you know, and I understand that part. You know, you got to make money because things nowadays are more expensive.
Yeah.
But it's the way they're pushing people and the way, and the problem with that is that they're pushing people way too much where you're getting a lot of crap.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say I think technology is going to play a huge factor in that, especially with like when you look at like virtual production, you know, what they did with Mandalorian, and I think they even applied the same thing for the majority of Ant-Man Quantumania.
Right.
They use the same technology, and I'm not saying that that technology is easier. I'm sure that also has its challenges, but I think that if you're getting a lot of shots, especially with the live actors, in the moment with what you're trying to get with your backdrop and everything,
right?
I'm assuming that's a huge time saver compared to like going on green screen and then keying it out and then applying all these different backgrounds and then compositing and then trying to match the color. Like there's just so many steps. Like I've never really done any green screen work, but I fully understand how it works and how time consuming it is. And when I saw what they did with Mandalorian, I'm like, oh my God, it not only does it look amazing and it looks, it's so weird because like I knew something about it was different before even watching it. And then once I saw it, I was like, okay, like I knew what I was looking at was not a real background, but like it still felt real.
It was, wasn't it rear projection?
It was just, well, it was
it's front projection.
It's front projection. That's right.
No, it's not even, it's an LED wall.
It's an LED wall.
And an LED wall.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the reason why they had to actually invent that was because of his armor was so reflective that they can only film it in a space that was real because it would be a nightmare to try to
the green screen with that
the green on him.
Right.
So that was kind of like a happy accident, and I don't know. I feel like that's a whole new realm for filmmaking because it kind of like puts the
actor in the world.
Actor back in the world and not make it not like they're just reacting to
exactly.
Yeah, they're not acting towards something that exactly.
You know,
so
and I would think from a visual effects artist perspective that's a huge time saver because they can do a lot of pre-production work with like set designers and costumes and everything and then create the world, and if something's not working, fix it right there on the set and then boom, bake it in in the film.
It's funny you mentioned that. Right away you could tell there was something different about it that wasn't quite green screen and made it seem real because when I first saw it seemed a lot like, I don't know if you're familiar with 2001: A Space Odyssey, but during the beginning scene with the apes, Stanley Kubrick used front projection on it, and that's exactly what reminded me of it. It had a quality to it that seemed like daytime but around dusk. It didn't have full daytime lighting on it, but it just seemed very cool and very very impressive. And it turned out it was LEDs, like Rob said, but still basically the same concept.
Yeah, that technology that Lucasfilm came up with is called a volume, and now being used in a lot of different productions. The thing is, a lot of people have said, but here's funny. I mean, technology like that, which looked great. There's one episode, especially of The Mandalorian, where the Razor Crest is in a hangar. And I was looking at this and I was saying, my God, I mean, this is like a full production. It just looks absolutely amazing. But then you go to Obi-Wan and you could tell that it was the volume. So now it's getting to the point where now you could tell if something is actually in the volume because there's something about it that just gives itself away.
Shortcuts.
They're taking shortcuts. And I think that's the whole thing about, hey, we're releasing way too much content and we're trying to, and the quality is just actually going down. But I was talking about Steven Spielberg before and just to kind of wrap up here, because I know that we've been going on for a while. So Steven Spielberg said to Tom Cruise that Top Gun Maverick saved the theater-going movie experience. What did you guys think about that? I mean, let me tell you, I thought the movie was phenomenal.
I agree.
I thought it was great. The fact that it got me to go to the movies at least 3 more times to see it was great. What do you guys think about that? Because you know what? Avatar, which is now over $2 billion, I did not go back.
I did not even see
a second time.
Yeah.
I love Cameron, but I will not go see that movie in the theater.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I mean, I thought Top Gun was like, it reminded me of movies that came out in the 80s, man. It was just like adventure and fun and just, action over the top. And it didn't have to worry. It didn't have some big message behind it. It was just as pure escapism is what it was. And I was pleasantly surprised because I was like, yeah.
Go ahead, Frank. Leaned heavily on that nostalgia.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and I think to Rob's point in the very beginning of the podcast, there was a lot of marketing done on all the practical effects that he was doing. And people were like, oh, I want to see Tom Cruise almost kill himself in many different ways.
Tom Cruise is the new Jackie Chan.
Even though that he didn't kill himself because he's obviously still alive, but you want to see how close of a call it was. Because I mean, obviously he doesn't know his films, right? Mission Impossible, all that stuff. But it made a huge difference. Like, I think that was the thing. People saw it and they knew they weren't looking at green screen. They were looking at these real actors in real jets in real time. And you can't listen, I love the visual effects world. I commend those guys because it's gotten to a point where you can't distinguish real from reality, but there are just certain imperfections from just filming something in camera that not that you can't replicate, but like when you put it up against each other, you're going to see it. And he found that, and he realized, he was like, you know what, this is what I'm going to be known for. And I'm going to keep going bigger and better because it cost them so much more money to film that way. Like, it's insane how much more money it cost. But look, it paid off and they made a lot of money. So it's, it's not a gimmick, but it is a gimmick. It's a good gimmick.
We're talking about a movie that made, I think it was 1.6 or 1.7 million, something like a billion, I believe. But believe it or not, and here's what's funny, because a lot of people say, oh, Tom Cruise, he was flying the F-18s. First of all, the Department of Defense will never give an actor access to actually fly their planes. Let's just put that out there. I don't care how much Tom Cruise, how much juice he has. He was actually in the rear seat of a tandem. Yeah. So he didn't fly an F-18. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Yes, they actually did the cat launches from the aircraft carrier. And they did the landings. But believe it or not, that movie had a shitload of effects too that were so well blended that it did a phenomenal job. But in the end, it wasn't all that. I think in the end, it was also a great story.
It was.
That's what I think really made, because it made people who saw Top Gun, the original Top Gun, like myself in theaters, come back to the movies. You have older Americans that just wanted to see this, and they just wanted to get that nostalgic of going back to the movies and seeing a great film. Avatar. Go ahead.
And it threw in a little bit of Star Wars in there too. So I don't know about you, but I thought that ending was like the trench,
the dog fight and everything else. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it did do that.
I really enjoyed it. I honestly, just to get my point of view in there, they did very well. It was very hyped. It was something that we waited a long time for. Yes, it was for all the nostalgia people, just like myself, who were kids when it came out in theater originally. Yes, in my opinion, and this is my opinion alone when I covered it, it's literally the same story over again in some respect.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
But you still enjoyed it for what you got.
Yeah.
You got Iron Eagle and Top Gun all in one movie.
Yeah.
And you got to enjoy
Iron Eagle. Oh my God.
Iron Eagle. He threw the Iron Eagle in there.
I had to, because there was somebody being saved at the end on land.
Yeah.
So, but
Lou Gossett and Jason Gedrick, remember that?
Oh my God, yeah.
I love that movie. I covered that too on Adrenaline Cinema. But I just love the fact that we get to relive our childhoods. A lot of people like us, you get new kids, us or people our age who have kids, and bringing them saying, you need to see this movie.
Yeah.
And then you got the older generation that even watched it in the theater too, who are probably in their 60s and 70s going, oh, I remember this. Oh, this is amazing. Right. And then there's some of those people out there like me at times going, I just want to see Tom Cruise be the new Jackie Chan and see what the hell he could get himself into.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's so crazy.
I just think that something like Top Gun, even though it did bring a lot of people back into the movies, the fact that he actually held off from having this movie actually get streamed, which is what was the trend during the pandemic. It needed to be seen
in the theater.
It needed to be seen, and that's what he held off, which I'm glad he did. But let's be honest. I mean, theater attendance is still 50% of what it used to be before. So
Yeah.
the fact that, Steven Spielberg sold them, hey, you saved the movie theater going experience. Like, well, for a few months, but it's still exactly the same. I mean, look at Avatar. Avatar made it's over $2 billion. And we still haven't gotten the same attendance going back into the movies. Now, this year is going to actually be very different because this year there's a shitload of movies that are coming out more than they have before. And we're just got to see what happens towards the end of the year and how the industry actually recover. And that's the part that's going to be very tricky, especially with a lot of the movies that are coming out.
Yeah.
And, and seeing how, if people are still going to react the same way. I mean, again, movies are expensive now to go out there.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can see a movie in 3 months or, whatever it is in your streaming service makes it very easy for people to say, you know what, I could wait the 3 months. So I'm hoping that somehow there's a change in this industry where, you know what, don't let it get released right away. Wait 6 months, wait a year or whatever it is. I mean, and then have people actually force them to go out to the movies. Because you know what, the movie theater experience is great when you are seeing it with other people that are just fans exactly like you.
Exactly.
And I think that's the one thing that we're missing, because no matter how comfortable you are in your house, and no matter how great it's
an experience.
It's an experience that everybody goes out there. At the same time, you feed off of the crowd especially when it's a good movie. You feed off of everybody else. But it's the fact that you're also getting out of the house, and stuff like that. So
just don't sit next to Al Bundy.
Yeah,
because he'll have his hand
Scratching
down his
himself.
pants as he's watching the film, because he was in the house for 2 years.
Oh, man. Well, guys, I want to thank everybody here for, coming on. Patrick, Frank, Adam, Mark, thank you so much for being on here. Hopefully everybody could tune in next time. We are actually going to do one of our fantasy casts is going to be on the movie X-Men Dark Phoenix. Which we're going to review and kind of go over what went wrong with that movie. So
everything.
So that's going to be one of our fantasy casts. So hopefully we could do that. Once again, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I want to thank everybody for listening, and hopefully we'll catch you the next time. Thank you so much, and everybody have a good day.